my life exploded. One of the things that really made me feel more like myself throughout all of this as I was still reading. Okay, I've got the coffee, I've got the bookshelves, I've got the laundry and random kid toys out of screen. I think I'm ready to do this. Hi and welcome, I'm Tara Swiger, and even though I've been on YouTube since the beginning, I just recently started making more book-related videos, so I thought it was time to do the new Booktuber tag. What's it called? Newbie Booktuber tag. This is a series of questions about reading and Booktube that I'm excited to answer. I have not looked at these yet, so let's get into it. So the first question is, why did you start this channel? Well, according to YouTube, I started this channel 13 years ago. The oldest video that's still alive on my YouTube channel was posted in 2008, and it is about dyeing yarn. So I had my first business was a yarn dyeing and spinning company. And so the first series of videos that are still up are videos of me dyeing like fleece in the microwave using Easter egg dyes. And the absolutely most popular video on my channel is still to this day how my spinning wheel works. Do I still spin on my spinning wheel? No, not really. Do I still have the yarn company? No, not really. I started it in around 2007, and in 2009 it became my full-time job, and I quit my day job, in part thanks to the marketing I was doing on Twitter and Flickr and YouTube. Then I started getting more and more questions about how I quit my job to make yarn. It was a weird thing to do at the time. Etsy was brand new, and I started helping people with their business kind of on the side. And in 2012, I wrote the book Market Yourself. And then I transitioned in 2013 to helping people with their small business full time. 10 years ago, so that would have been 2012, I started putting business, crafty small business videos on this YouTube channel. For over 6 years, I posted a weekly audio podcast to explore your enthusiasm. It's still available. You can go listen to it if you need help with mindset, goal setting. In 2015, I published the book Map Your Business, which helps you take any big goal and break it down into a doable plan and then do regular monthly check-ins. We became foster parents in 2018. And I posted in 2018 and 2019, throughout that process, I posted a series of foster care journey videos, process, and I'll share that playlist below. So I did weekly videos, and then my life exploded. I should say, actually, throughout this, focusing on small creative businesses, focusing on foster care, I have shared what I was reading since the beginning. Over a decade ago, I posted how I read 100 books a year. So I've made book videos before, but I was really making them for the podcast and the blog. And then in 2020, my life exploded. When the pandemic hit, we had a foster care case with us that was extremely difficult. So I kind of like backed off from the podcast for a minute. But then in June, we were asked to adopt our son, who was born just 2 weeks after we were asked in July of 2020. So I became a mom to a newborn who was in the NICU. He got out of the NICU, he's been fine. And then September, two of our former foster daughters came back into custody, but now they had a baby sister. And we said, yes, of course. So we became the parents to 4 children under 4 years old overnight in September of 2020. And I just totally went offline, focused on being a mom to newborns. And then in the fall of 2021, I really realized I was suffering depression. And I went to a therapist and I started medication. And one of the things that really made me feel more like myself the whole time and throughout all of this as I was still reading 2020 and 2021, I was still talking about books with my friends on Marco Polo and over text. And it's just the thing that has made me that still seems like the most Tara thing, even though my life has changed so much. So it's a very long answer to how I started this channel, but that's what brings us to today and sharing book videos. The next question is, what are some unique or fun things you can bring to Booktube? Well, like I said, I think I really am thinking more about what Booktube is bringing into my life, which is like making me feel like myself again. Enjoyment of like my own thing after a time in my life that has just been full of upheaval and change, and so much about my life has changed. I don't want to make any assumptions about all booktubers because the booktube community is incredibly diverse and from a whole diversity of backgrounds. However, I do feel like there are fewer women who are over, say, 35. I'm about to turn 40 in the summer. And so I'm over 35. I'm a parent of 4 young children. I don't really plan to talk a lot about kids' books unless it is to recommend diverse kids' books. What a lot of women who look like me and who have families like mine that have, you know, developed their larger family through foster care and adoption, a lot of them do vlogs and a lot of them do like adoption information. And I'm not interested in sharing my kids or making my kids like public figures. I like YouTube for feeling like myself, like my adult life. I'm not here to say like, oh, I'm so unique. Booktube is all this one kind of thing and I'm so different. I think there are fewer older booktubers, in part because it takes a lot of time and energy to read a lot and make videos about reading a lot. And I really enjoy channels that do something slightly different. Like I get most of my books that I'm reading from the library. It's also a misunderstanding that to make booktube videos, you have to be reading just a ton, and I'm not always. Yeah. The next question is, what am I most excited about for this new channel? And this is not a new channel, but this is a new like kind of video I'm making. What I'm most excited about is just to talk about books with people who love books. It's one of my favorite things to do. I talk to librarians when I go to the library. I talk to my friends. I talk to my husband about what he's reading. We have different reading tastes somewhat. And I talk to my oldest daughter is in kindergarten and she's learning how to read, and I cannot wait until she's reading and I can talk to her about what she's reading. Okay, so the next question is, why do I love reading? I feel like if you love reading, you know you love it. And if you don't, like you don't, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think for me, it's both like an escape, but it's like an escape that, and there are studies that show this, that like watching Netflix is not necessarily restful for your brain, but reading fiction or nonfiction has your brain do different things and more restful things. I originally liked it. Then one of the questions is, when did you start reading? And I mean, I started reading in first grade when they taught me how to read, and I was super into it before I could even read. I wanted to read everything, and I just like immediately jumped on the bandwagon, kind of never stopped. Through college, I have a degree in French literature, so I read a lot of French books, and that kind of kept me from reading so many books in English. But I got back into it pretty soon after I graduated. And I read all through high school to a degree. Less probably later in high school because I was working full time, going to high school and doing post-secondary enrollment, going to the community college at the same time, my senior year. And so that was probably the amount I read the least. But to go back to why I like reading, and when I started reading, at first it was an escape from my life. It was a way to get out of my small town and a situation that I was not happy to be in, and really escape to a new world, which I think is why I probably did a little bit less in college. I was really happy in college. And then as I became adult, just a way to escape like the daily adult grind and like live in new worlds and see through new people's eyes and experience things I'm not going to get to experience as a white lady who lives in East Tennessee. The next question is, what book or series got you into reading? And like I said, I started reading in first grade and I like got obsessed right away. I think the book I remember being completely involved in, the series, was, this makes me feel really old because these books are really old, but it was Anne of Green Gables. I absolutely loved all of Anne of Green Gables. I think I read all 8 books, even though I didn't love the last ones as much. And I remember where they were located in my public library. Like I remember going and being in front of that shelf at the Brookville Public Library in Brookville, Ohio, and just like loving Anne and loving Diana. And then me and my mom would rent the PBS VHS from the library and watch those as well. But I think I was watching them a couple years after I read them. So I think I read them around 10 and 11. And then we watched the PBS show when I was 13 or 14. I need to look up when they came out. But I loved Anne of Green Gables. My husband actually just got me an Anne of Green Gables shirt for Christmas. And I've got the first 3 books. And I plan to reread them this year and do a vlog about rereading some of my childhood favorites. I loved Anne of Green Gables. I love Laura Ingalls Wilder. Little House on the Prairie. I read that whole series, at least the first 2 or 3 books. I also really loved, I remember in 5th grade from my school library, I got Jeanette Okie Christian historical fiction romances, Christian historical romances. And I like read that whole series, Love Come Softly series. And my librarian was like, "Are you old enough to read this?" And I was like, "Well, it's in our school library. Of course I am." My mom doesn't care. My mom had no idea. And it wasn't steamy. It was just all romance and yearning. Those are the books I remember really. But Anne of Green Gables was like the first one I was obsessed with. Okay, so the next question is, what challenges do you think will be hardest to overcome? And honestly, my challenge is time and sick kids. So having the time when there's no kids awake running around to record, absolutely the hardest challenge. Well, I'm gonna batch these, like I'm doing 2 right now. Okay, so the next question is, where do you read? And the answer is everywhere. You'll see in the vlogs I post that I read in the car while I wait for the kids, except for they're young, so I don't get to do a lot of like dropping off and leaving them somewhere. Sometimes when we go to the doctor, we have to wait in the car. I read in the doctor's office while we're waiting for the doctor. I mostly read in the chair that I have shot the recent videos from. It's over there in the living room. It's a comfy chair, or I read on the couch, which is where my dog is right now, or I read in bed. And I read in bed almost every night. If I haven't had a chance to read throughout the day, which often I don't have the chance to read throughout the day, I read in bed. On a weekend, I sometimes will sit on the couch while the kids are playing and read there. I read wherever. I always take the book in my purse when I go get the kids from anywhere, because you don't know when you'll be stuck someplace waiting. So the next question is, what kind of books do I like to read? I read mostly adult books, mostly in the last year because I need something really plot driven in order to focus with everything else going on. I've read a lot of mysteries, thrillers. I read some sci-fi, some literary fiction, a smidge of fantasy, and a smidge of horror. That's mostly what I read. Wait, the next question is, what does your book collection look like? Well, it looks like what's behind me. These are mostly the books that I've read. So, or they're my husband's books. Like this series is my husband's book also. The Game of Thrones here and the Robert Ludlum. I've read one of those. This is the 2 shelves of fiction. I have memoir and autobiography here, which are mostly books I've read. We have some theology and philosophy down here. All of my craft and business books are upstairs, and I have 3 shelves over there that have books to be read over in the living room. This is in the dining room, and I will do a bookshelf tour when I have all my business and craft books unpacked, but they are all upstairs in what is going to be the office and is currently my husband's office during COVID while he can't go to his actual office. He works upstairs, but we don't have bookshelves that fit it's a gabled ceiling, and so we need to get bookshelves that will fit up there, that will hold my craft and business books. That's what it looks like. I only keep books that I really love. My husband likes to keep all the books he's ever read. I can only keep the books I really, really love because we don't have that much space. I'd like to make this bookshelf, like I'm sitting on the floor, so I'd like for this bookshelf to go all the way to the ceiling, but Jay thinks it would be too overwhelming for this size room, so maybe in our next house we will have floor to ceiling bookshelves. I certainly have enough books to fill it in, especially if I kept more, but I'm pretty choosy about what I keep. When I finish a book, if I think I will either refer it to a friend or will want to reread it, I keep it. If I can't see myself doing that and it's not part of a series that I really love, I take it to the used bookstore or I'm gonna give them away here on the channel. So I get a lot of book of the month books, and if I don't absolutely love them, like if they're not a 5-star read, they go to the used bookstore or I'm gonna give them away to you guys here. So that way I keep the number of books on my shelves down. Also, I don't buy that many books each month because I use my library. So my book collection is really my entire library system's book collection. So that is it for the questions. Thanks for being here with me. Thanks for joining me on this new adventure. I am super happy to talk about books with you, and I would love to hear what got you into reading and what are your childhood favorites. I'm going to be rereading some of mine in an upcoming video probably this spring, and I'd love to know if you have done answered these questions. Drop your video below. I will go watch it and get to know you. Thanks so much for being here and happy reading. There's nothing wrong with buying books. Lord knows I buy a lot of fabric and a lot of yarn that I don't necessarily use. So no judgment.